What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily podcast powered by Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Happy Monday. A lot going on. Had kind of a depressing show yesterday. Recruiting slowing down quite a bit. A little earlier than you wanted to. Hope to finish with a bang. I'm not sure it's going to finish the summer with a bang. We talked about that yesterday for 2 hours. Great episode. Talked to Daryl Streeter from Footballville. Pete, we really broke it down yesterday. So if you want to hear anything about recruiting, just check out some of the videos we posted yesterday. Today, we are shifting focus to the team. A lot of buzz. Who's working out well? Who's improving? Who's a name to keep an eye on, on this roster? Because right now, if recruiting's kind of done for the time being, it's football season, baby. So let's get ready for the season. I'll tell you who's getting ready for football season. A lot of football fans there. Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anijar and Levine. All right, Pete, Farron saying it. Hop in.
Good morning, D.
What's going on? Sorry I was late. Had some stuff to do. Nothing. Yeah, put out an article here.
I got a good chuckle this morning. I got a very good chuckle this morning. Very savvy move by UD. Nothing like a little 01 recruiting class analysis to stop the bleeding.
It's funny. People are saying that. The truth is, so we'll talk about this at the end of the show because I want to go through it in depth. But I did a big article. And I'm doing a series of articles, which is basically going back and looking at the old recruiting classes, starting at 2001, which is the good one, and then progressing even further as it kind of goes downhill, just to understand sort of how, we know we've been bad for 2 decades plus, and now we're hopefully starting to dig out of it. So kind of understand what happened, what went wrong, where can we get better, where maybe are we getting better, just really putting some numbers and some analysis to what happened. Now that we have time to reflect, these guys got out to the NFL or whatever they've done. It's interesting to look back, trip down memory lane. So really enjoyed doing that series. We started with the 2001 class, which was the best one of this last period. That's the first Coker class, transition class from Butch Davis. We'll talk about all that at the end of the show. But yeah, that was planned. It's July 14th. This was always planned to be before camp to kind of carry us over. So I've seen some people with the conspiracy theories. I got a text from my guy JP, and he said the same thing you did. But no, it was all planned, and we're on to football season.
All right, I'm back. I was muted there for a second. We had an Amazon delivery, and the dog was barking, so I'm good now.
My guy Kioki Fuentes says good morning from Denver. I'm heading out to Denver later this week. Actually, sorry, in a week. We'll be recording. You won't notice any difference other than maybe mountains in the background, but I'll be at Estes Park with my fam. So shout out Gioki, heading out to the Rocky Mountain State next week.
The world traveler himself.
Summer shambles in full effect. Let's see what's going on here. Rich, I've heard this, and I talked about this yesterday, but I just want to say, he's saying it's hard to flip the top kids when they have contracts. I asked around about this. The contracts are not all created equal. Just a lot of it depends on the state you're in. Florida is not as, let's say, draconian in terms of if you want to flip schools, like clawing back money and stuff like that. So some states are more. It's easier to claw back money if someone leaves, including states where we have commits, which means they're harder. It's harder for them to decommit, which is good, including probably our best commit, right, in Missouri. So we'll see. But I don't think it's like, the staff thinks they can flip guys. We'll see. They got to do it. Maybe our own guys are going to flip. That's who knows how it goes. But I asked specifically about this, and I think it's going to be possible to flip a lot of players.
Lance Carew says you should analyze Mario's 4 classes at Oregon. We did a lot of stuff last offseason, especially around draft time, regarding Mario's classes at Oregon and how many pros came out of that kind of run compared to what was happening at Miami. But maybe we can do something else there.
Yep, I think that's a good idea. Hassan saying, "Good morning, fellas. You guys have been giving us bad news. We still love you guys. Let's get good news to you today, right? Because I want to talk about the team.
Alleged good news.
Alleged good news. I mean, look, you're not going to hear too much bad news at this time, but here's what I'll say about these kind of workout reports. We all know they're not in pads or just running around, whatever. You're not going to hear necessarily a ton of bad news at this time. So just expect that and bake that into, hey, just because we're getting good news doesn't mean there's no bad news. Just we're probably not going to get that out of that building at this time. However, that doesn't mean that the good news coming out is all fluff. I think back to last year around this time. We heard all the stuff about Cam Ward. We knew Cam Ward was what he was, but that was certainly buzz that was coming out. But what I thought was interesting was like the Jordan Lyles,
the OJ
Frederics, right? Elijah Lofton. Those are the guys that really contributed and played important snaps as freshmen. So those were the guys you heard buzz about. There weren't a ton of guys where you were like consistently hearing buzz and then they disappeared. I mean, Pruitt, I guess, McConaughey, but those guys played as well. So really the guys that you heard buzz about in this time, no pads, running around, helmets and shorts, or not even, but just physically moving and going about their work every day. You heard a lot about those guys before. In this time period, they ended up playing, some of the transfers that ended up hitting. You heard about those as well. So I think that's something to keep in mind as you hear these reports, that it's not all fluff. Like, you can tell when someone's in the building every day working, running around, because, and you can tell what's going on when you're around someone that much. There's things that will get picked up that are meaningful. Arab saying Pete with the bougie water. What kind of water you got there?
Got the Mountain Valley spring water. Need that glass bottle.
I heard that's what like the presidents drink. Is that the one? Someone said that there's like a drink that only presidents drink and they all live a long time. It might be.
I mean, I don't know if it's that one, but just trying to reduce those microplastics.
Yeah, my wife saw me about all that stuff. Hold on, let me see. Where did I hear this? Yeah, Mountain Valley is what the presidents drink. So then I heard
the Mountains, from the Ouachita Mountains.
So that was the selling point. Albert McKinney saying, "Can the season start, please? Recruiting the last 2 years got all college football fans losing their mind." We're here for you, Albert. We're going to talk about players that are on the football team that you're going to see play football in orange and green this season. So, just to get it started, Pete, we can go kind of position by position to an extent, but I wanted to really start with the group that is getting the most buzz in the offseason. And quite frankly, it's a group that you can monitor in the offseason, because a lot of what they do from a work standpoint, from a talent, just movement standpoint, you don't necessarily need pads to get a big part of the picture. Now, you're not going to get the whole picture without safeties coming and crushing you and cornerbacks really, really getting in there. But the wide receiver group, I have heard consistently, and we'll get to what you're hearing as well, is generating a ton of buzz. I heard CJ Daniels, both from a leadership standpoint, from a health standpoint, coming off the foot surgery, looks really good. They think he's going to do more than what Horton did last year for us, on top of the leadership component. I'm hearing Malachi Toney. We talked about him a lot, but I want to emphasize, sometimes they'll say this guy's going to be a freshman contributor. This guy will get snaps as a freshman. What I hear on Malachi Toney is more along the lines of this guy will be a freshman star. Now, that's a lot to put on a freshman. We've seen that happen before and it doesn't work out. I'm just trying to put in perspective. We always hear good reports on certain freshmen. With Malachi, it's much more, hey, this guy can be a star freshman. And look, last year, you had a freshman All-America in OJ Frederic. In terms of guys you signed out of high school, Zechariah Poyser was a freshman All-America coming in as a transfer this year. But Frederic was a freshman All-America for Miami. I would consider him a freshman star. 2 years ago, you had Ruben Bain and Francis Mauanoa, freshman All-Americans. I consider them stars as freshmen. The buzz that you're hearing on Malachi Toney is much more of that star-type buzz based on, again, what they're saying to me. I saw it in spring. Certainly looked like a star there. Hold on. Thank you. Shout out to my mother-in-law, Lasara.
Wow, bringing me some
coffee. That's how we're doing out here.
Look at that service, man. Unbelievable. You got it good over there.
Yeah, shout out to Lasada. But in terms of Tony, he looked great in spring. He looked like a star. That was a real thing, and that buzz continues to build. We talked about JoJo Trader. Expectation is he's going to be one of the key guys in this team. He's got to get it done. We all know that stuff. Josh Moore, Dalen Upshaw, they think they hit on those guys. And there's more than that, but those are some names. Keelan Marion, I heard from a source, different kind of player, because this is much more of like a gadget, return man, hand the ball off to him kind of guy. But I heard Keelan Marion, they think he'll make a bigger impact as a player than Jacoby George. I thought that comparison was unusual because I don't look at them as similar types of players, and I don't think they do either. But that was the phrase that was used, is they think impact-wise, at least the people I talked to, he could have that more than that contribution in all phases.
I think that the offense kind of lacks a player like that, quite frankly. I don't know that look, you could have said you had that in Brashard Smith a couple of years ago, different styles. I think Brashard has a little bit more, power element to his game, is more of like a running back, obviously, but you didn't have a gadget player on this offense last year, or at least someone that has shown it yet. Elijah Lofton, could he be something like that? Yes. But again, to me, it's a different, you're looking at a different type of player there and how they'll be utilized.
Pete, a lot of comments on your backpack here.
It's a weighted vest. It's not a backpack.
Oh, so you're getting some work in while you're doing this here.
Yeah, posture wise, I think it'll help me core strength. Even though I'm sitting down right now, I did a nice 30-minute walk this morning with it on. I just said, let me just keep it going. Like I said, man, until I feel like we're going where we need to go in the trenches, I need to train a different way to be ready for when my number's called.
Look at that, man. The work never stops. You're working twice right now. You're working on, you're working as a professional broadcaster while also working on the body and just the general movement and core strength.
That's a very broad term when you say professional broadcaster.
You've been bringing the info, man, as far as this team, a lot of team.
I'll have another edition of the work this week, D. But just kind of following up what you're saying about Malachi Tony, I think we've both agreed for a while that he would have a big impact. I think the question is really, like, is he the man game one? You know that there's a veteran in Tony Johnson. I think we expect Malachi to be the man by game 3 or 4, but right off the bat, Notre Dame, are we throwing him out there first snap on offense?
First snap, we'll see. I think he's going to play a lot in that game if he's healthy. I don't see why he wouldn't. Obviously, he's young. Jeremiah Smith, totally different athlete, totally different player, but he was the best player on a championship team. We're not saying Malachi Tony is going to be the best player on a championship team, but can he be a good player on a playoff team? I don't think that's out of the realm, and certainly not out of the realm of what's being expected of him based on what he's done. That's how he's preparing. I don't think the playbook's going to be an issue. I don't think the bright lights, any freshman is going to have a little bit of an adjustment, but this is not someone who's coming from Montana. They've been calling him Baby Jesus since high school. I think he's used to expectations. So we'll see what happens there.
I think this is A-Rob says nope in terms of he's not going to start. Mario's old school and he's about seniority. I mean, listen, the Swamp last year, OJ Frederic was starting as a cornerback on an island, probably outside of quarterback and tackle, as we saw with Zion Nelson in his first game years ago against Florida. There's not many tougher positions to get your first action in. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you've had freshman All-Americas every year. So you would say that somebody potentially could be the freshman All-America this year. So who is it going to be? You had Bain and Maunoa. You had Frederic. Now, who's it going to be this year? And I think Malachi Tony is the name Now that's a tough position. There's a lot of competition at wide receiver. You talk about freshman All-America. So I'm not saying he's going to be a freshman All-America. That's a tough group to compete against typically. Plus, we have other guys on this team that are going to be getting some catches. So I just don't know statistically. But as far as like that kind of star where you know the name as a freshman, I think Malachi Toney is the one getting the most attention. Trying to think of freshmen. I'm shifting gears.
Josh Moore gets buzz, but I don't know that they're counting on him to be like an every down consistent player this year. I think he's more of a situational guy. And the word that's been used to me, I put it in the work last week, was he's a flash guy right now. And the flashes are beautiful. I mean, we've seen him go over the top of guys in practice and just moss people using one hand, to make some of these grabs, and the way he elevates and the way he uses his physicality. Because we talk about it's one thing to have the size, but knowing how to use that body and have the body control, which are all traits that I think Moore has, but it's got to be consistent. And I think he's another one that you get to the middle part of the season, the cream rises to the top. The best players are going to play. You need to see him do it, down in, down out in the first few games, when he gets those opportunities. Because look, we talk about JoJo Trader last year, and yes, he was banged up, and yes, he needed that season to kind of get his body right. But even when he did have opportunities there, it wasn't perfect, right? He had a big drop against Cal, for example. So like when you get your opportunities as a young guy, you need to take advantage of them. And I think Moore is someone that kind of eases his way into it by the middle to latter part of the season. He's a big part of at least when he's on the field, he's going to scare the defense, I think, in a different way than what you have with some of these other players at that position.
Yeah, no question about it. Dalen Upshaw, another one. You look at Alan Hearns. I'd say that's always been my comp for him. I think the trajectory, Hearns was a special teams player as a freshman, a good one, like kickoff, like coverage units and stuff like that. And then eventually got more and more playing time until he was the go-to guy. Dalen Upshaw I could see on a similar trajectory where he plays this year, but maybe not a ton at wide receiver, but he's capable if he needs to. The other freshman that I hear a lot of buzz about as far as instant impact, I just kind of go through the list. Hayden Lowe for sure, 5-star, big body. Like there's gonna be a lot of names there. I'm not sure he's gonna be like Ruben Bain where he just kind of takes over, because Ruben Bain's still on the team. Plus you got Rondo Blunt, some other guys, Messidor. So I don't know if Lowe will have that kind of just dominant impact, but I think he will play and play well. Let me tell you a name, by the way, and his dad I know watches the show, so I want to bring him up. Kellen Wiley Jr. So Kellen Wiley Sr., I see you commenting all the time. Let me know if you're listening in the comments. I'm hearing some really, really good stuff about Kellen Wiley Jr. He's just total freak of nature. And I asked, I go, is he going to be able to play this year? Just with the adjustment and everything else from high school to college. And he goes, we can't keep this guy off. It's going to be hard. It's just going to be hard to keep him off the field because of the physical traits, the aggressiveness, the length. He's a Heatherman kind of guy. Heatherman loves length. He loves traits. He loves guys that can rush the passer. And then he thinks he can coach them up in the system. So that is a guy that I think Heatherman is a perfect fit with going forward. And this year, I don't know if he's going to be like a Sean Spence, right? Or one of these guys, Denzel Perryman, that they're like just natural, instinctive, pure linebackers that you throw them out there and they're making tackles right away. I think he's much more of a high upside, develop slower guy, but he's so athletic and talented. I think at least in the special teams part of the game, you're going to see Kellen Wiley get some burn and make an impact.
And what I've heard just talking to, I was talking to one of the linebackers a couple months ago, and what they told me was just how much easier the defense was from their perspective. Like there wasn't as much on them from a yes, instincts at that position are always going to be important, but they're kind of being told what to do on each play, right? So there's not as much thinking in the equation, so to speak. And I think that someone like Wiley, they can kind of pigeonhole him into doing one or two different things, right? You get after the quarterback, or you're matching up with a body type that, because we know he can get sideline to sideline, and I think that's what he's going to bring to the table. He doesn't have to be perfect in terms of the knowledge of what's going on down there, because he has those traits, right? And he can kind of make up maybe being a step slow on recognition early on with that sideline to sideline speed that he has and the length.
And look, he'll develop, right? He's a late blooming guy. What he is now is not what he's going to be. So that will continue to grow. One more name I want to mention from the freshman class, Pete, and while you kind of go to your notes and think about some other guys that have jumped out to you, I know you've been talking to people. Brock Schott, as far as the freshman class. Luka Gilbert, I think, could help early, particularly special teams. Just he's got the size, fluid athlete, coordinated, good hands, knows how to block. But Brock Schott's a name that I've heard is just a total weight room monster. The guy lives in the weight room. He lives to work out. That's pretty much what he's about. He's got tremendous speed. I saw him in spring. This guy's got legit Miami caliber speed. He's probably the fastest tight end we've signed since. We had Arroyo. Arroyo was pretty fast, but he's in that category of speed, not as tall and just big as Arroyo, but speed wise, that kind of speed, maybe even a little faster in a smaller body, and willing to block, aggressive. So Brock Schott's a name I've heard that will get involved. Alex Bauman's starting to make more of an impact. We didn't see him that much in spring because he was hurt and he just gotten here from Tulane in the portal. But now people are getting more familiar with Alex Bauman. They like what he's doing there with him. So keep an eye on Alex Bauman. But freshman-wise, Brock Schott. You looked at Elijah Lofton last year playing a big role, had a lot of snaps on this team. Didn't have a huge amount of targets or carries, but in terms of the snaps that he played, he was in there on a lot of big plays. So I think Brock Schott could be somebody that you see with the first team getting snaps, similar to Elijah Lofton. Maybe not as advanced, but one thing I would say over Elijah Lofton, who, as you know, I think he's the best player on the team, I say Schott is even faster than Lofton. Schott is really, really, really fast.
I wanted to mention someone, D, that we've talked about a good amount. I saw him in the comments here, and I think he could be someone who's pushing. He's in that mix probably for that 4th, 5th D tackle spot. Dante Simpson from Chaminade, right? I'm going to pull up a picture real quick. I was just looking for kind of an updated picture on him. There's one here from March, but look at this picture of him from February of last year. All right. Picture of him in the weight room, and you see young, looks young in the face there. You could see he's got some size on him, but with room to grow. And then this is just a year later. So This is what he looked like this spring. And he's someone that, talking to, being out at these practices and then talking to some people who were seeing parts of the field that I wasn't able to get to on the media side. Talking to someone who played at Miami and coached at Miami, said out of all the freshman defensive linemen, he was the one. Him and Lowe were the ones that stood out, and that he looks like a vet, has the power at the point of attack that generally you don't find with an early enrollee at that position. And I think, look, there was a question about Artavius Jones. This was a big spring for him. I think he helped himself. He needed to really show some progress after last season. I think just at maturity and doing the right things outside of just being a beast in the weight room, right? So I think that's going to be an interesting battle with Artavius Jones and Dante Simpson. But that picture, that's a pretty crazy transformation. I'll pull it up again. This was February 2024, yep. And then March 4th, 2025. It's pretty crazy.
That's big, man. And by the way, I think you're bringing this up, Pete, because one thing I didn't mention in the front, I'm hearing great things about the new strength and conditioning team. We have a new strength and conditioning lead, but it's really just, as a group, right? I'm hearing that the progress in the weight room with this new team, some of them have been around, but it's obviously with the stash moving on. It's a new leadership, new group. I'm hearing that they are making major strides in the weight room. You hear that all the time. It's the off season. I get it. But it was pointed out to me directly and pretty emphatically. And you saw it with Dante Simpson there, the picture, Pete, you were showing. One more thing on Dante Simpson. I thought he was going to be like a John Ford type, but John Ford got drafted. You know, that's a guy that you win with. If John Ford would have, he was kind of early for the portal era, right? He's the kind of guy that like jumps in the portal and you're like, why is this guy getting so much attention? And then he's getting huge money. But John Ford, I thought, was what a comp for Dante Simpson coming out. Now having seen Dante Simpson in person in spring, I was at every practice pretty much. His quickness, his athleticism for his size, much better than what I expected it to be. Given what really in high school, you could tell that he had talent, but he hadn't turned it all on yet. It was kind of a flash player, would have injuries here and there. Now seeing him in spring, the twitch and the athleticism is more than I expected. And you just pointed out the size is there.
I wanted to bring this question up. I know we're jumping around a bit, but we've had this similar question a few times asking about Ray Joseph. Heart of Sports says, is Ray not going to be a dude? All the talk is Malachi and Tony, but Ray can play. Can he not? You and I are both big fans of Ray D in terms of the work ethic, what he brings to the team. Mario had him as a lead recruiter on some of these receivers that have been down here too. He's had them sitting at dinner on their visits, right? With these guys. It hasn't gone well, but that's not on Ray. But that just shows you what
great guy.
Right. But my point for saying that is Mario wants this guy on the team. He was not pushed out of the door. He stuck around too, which I think we need to give Ray a ton of credit for doing that. And 100% he is in the mix. I think he had a good spring. To me, it looked like he leaned up a little bit. I mentioned that a couple times. I think he showed a little bit more of the quicks. We've said it time and time again, was not a pure receiver coming out of high school. And I think that's been a bigger adjustment or learning curve, especially in an offense where there's a lot put on the slot under Shannon Dawson. But we're both hopeful for him. I don't think we're going to sit here and say he's going to have 1,000-yard season, but I have said a few times this offseason, I have not given up on Ray in the grand scheme of things here. I'm excited for him to go out there and he's kind of for different reasons, but a Chance Robinson, for example, who's been banged up. Like, I'm not giving up on those guys. It's just, you got to see it before you say we're counting on this guy to be a really reliable part of our rotation.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. He had a good spring, probably the best spring I've seen him have. You have competition there with Tony Johnson, obviously with Malachi Tony. Let's see what happens. I think everybody wants him to be part of the team. He's part of the team, a bigger part of the team because the character is so strong and he has athletic traits. He's explosive. So we'll see, man. I hope they find a role for him because he's a great example what you want a Cane to be. And he had a good spring. He made plays. So we'll see. Slot's the most important position of the receivers, at least in this Dawson offense. So we will see what happens there, man. He's in the mix. He's there.
Kevin Dennis says people forget Ohio State and UF want a chance. Don't sleep on him. I don't think we're sleeping on him, but he just hasn't been healthy, man. So until he's out there on the practice field, I know we've seen some videos of him this offseason looking huge, looking like a tank. And we want him to be healthy because that physical nature at the position is much needed.
Yeah, exactly. He's got to get healthy. He's got to play.
But listen, you guys got to understand how it is. If we sit here and we start telling you every single player is primed for a breakout season, then we're called homers. So we can't just hype everyone up.
Well, I mean, I honestly cannot hype Chance up because I just haven't seen him play. So to me, to hype him up would just be a total lie because he just hasn't played when I've been around, and that's been most of the time. I can tell you, looking on the sideline, the guy looks the part. He looks like $1 million. He's big. I've heard no bad character stuff or anything like that with him. So it's just a matter of getting on the field and performing. But the guy with that kind of size And I liked him in high school as far as being a physical guy. He blocks, he catches the ball. So you can use a guy like that. It's just going to be about playing, but it's a good problem to have if we're not talking about enough people. Storm Warning said, "What's up, fellas? So glad we're talking about football. I'm sick of talking about recruiting. There's going to be a great year for the Canes. Everybody's going to want to come to Miami after this." That's the hope, man. That's the hope, is that the team does what it's supposed to do. And from there, the recruiting takes care of itself. Before we keep going here, well, let's see. Before we get to the spots, I want to finish this team discussion. Just names I've heard.
I have a name who's not a freshman, Dylan Day. Dylan Day. Someone told me the other day that someone who D, who's a very good source on this sort of stuff, says Dylan Day is up at 200 pounds, looks great physically, and then just we talk about the character side and how guys approach off seasons, handle themselves in the building outside of just the weight room and things of that nature. And Dylan Day is someone that I believe is going to push for a lot of playing time this year.
Yeah, the Truth Live saying that's his sleeper as well. Fresh is saying 210. That'd be shocker to me. 210's huge.
I can get his current weight. 210 would be very surprising to me.
The name I keep just observing him and kind of physically looking at him run around and knowing what this player looked like at the same age. The comp I always use for Dylan Day, Sheldrick Redwine. Just a guy who is a corner. Is he a safety? Is he a nickel? Ended up being a safety and a really good one. He was 6 foot 196, so Dylan Day might be a little bigger than him. Redwine really improved his speed. He was running like 4.8 in high school as far as the electric times or the laser times. Ended up running a 4.44 at the combine, 39-inch vert, 4.1 shuttle. So Redwine really worked his way to kind of maximize his athleticism, worked in the weight room, got more assertive, more decisive at safety once he got used to the position. It was really, really good for us, 4th-round pick. So I could see a similar trajectory to Dylan Day. He was a fast guy in high school, ran the 200. I want to say he ran in the 21, something like that, but pretty fast in the 200 meters. That was his specialty, and has the length, has played corner, has played returner, has played a little bit of offense, I believe, in high school, did a little bit of everything. Now, year two at safety. He was the best special teams player we had last year. A lot to like with Dylan Day. Name I want to bring up here, Armando Blunt, just because there's a lot of questions about that 4th defensive tackle. I really think that when it's all said and done and you add up the snaps, I think Armando Blunt probably is that 4th defensive tackle from a snap standpoint. He's still going to be out at defensive end, but you have Hayden Lowe there. You have other guys that can help you at defensive end. So I think Armando Blunt will end up being that 4th defensive tackle. He's more physical than Mesidor, who did that for you last year. So, just bigger than Mesidor, naturally bigger than Mesidor, I should say, just standing next to them. Blunt's just a naturally bigger, more powerful player than Mesidor. So we'll see how that goes, but I wanted to bring that up. Linebacker, name I got to talk about. The buzziest name of the transfers, aside from Carson Beck, who we talked about plenty, Motore. Just that this guy is something we have not had on the team from a leadership standpoint on defense. 2019 class. So he's the same class as Sam Brooks. This guy's been around, but the way he runs, the way he moves, the attitude that he has, I'm hearing a ton of impact type buzz. Like this guy's going to be an impact player with Motori. He's ready to go. He's running around. They said he runs like a deer already. It might take a week or two to get cleared in camp just because they want to see him with pads on running around, just kind of part of the process. But I don't think it's one of those situations where he's going to be like 50% running around in camp, limping his way to Notre Dame. I heard he's running really well. And I just keep hearing that he is what we have not had under Mario Cristobal. And we've had some good ones. Francis Malinois just got drafted. Wesley Basaint's rock solid. But I keep hearing
Francisco got drafted.
Oh, sorry. Francisco Malinois just got drafted. Kiko Malinois. But Motore, they're saying just from a personality as far as being that kind of extroverted leader, that real alpha type guy. Not that, Kiko Malinois is an alpha. I wouldn't want to mess with him, but quieter dude. This guy's just more of a take charge. He knows the defense. He played under Coach Heatherman. We needed exactly what he brings on paper, and hearing people around the building, he has been that at least since he's been down here.
A-Rob asking about Blunt, if he's open to playing DT, that during the recruiting process he wanted to play DN. I see him as more of it playing DT in situational, like pass rushing situations. I don't know if he's a down in, down out D tackle, just with his frame.
Yeah, but I mean, I bet he's probably more powerful than a lot of guys in the ACC playing, as your third, fourth guy. I think that he can definitely do. Martin Dubé saying Touré is pronounced, and he says Touré, not Torre, which I've been saying. Found in 3 or 4 West African countries. Appreciate you as always, Martin. Couple comments here on a player that I want to get to, which is Bobby Pruitt. So Bobby Pruitt, we get a lot of questions about him, and I asked about him specifically, and the buzz on him is extremely strong at the linebacker position, not safety. People ask he's going to play safety, linebacker. He did a great interview with Category 6. Shout out to Coach Jay. Shout out to 50. Shout out to everybody over there with Category 6. But Bobby Pruitt, heard a lot of buzz last year, ended up playing. I mean, he was out there. He forced a fumble against Syracuse. He played as a freshman on the defense. I'm hearing he looks absolutely outstanding just from a talent standpoint, what he can do running, what he can do hitting. Like you talk about NFL and things like that. The name you hear is a Bobby Pruitt and Kellen Wiley, who we talked about a little earlier. But Bobby Pruitt it was brought up to me specifically when I was asking around this last round. He is a name that's got a lot of buzz behind him. Is he going to be, the first down, second down linebacker consistently? I don't know, maybe. But certainly on third down, a guy like Bobby Pruitt is someone you want on the field because he can cover. He's got great instincts. He can strike. And he just always finds, even as a freshman, when he was learning his way, the defense was struggling, he found his way around the ball.
Pedro Roman asking, do we have a fullback? I believe that would be Elijah Lofton.
Yeah, I think we got 2, right? In my view, that there's 2 guys that need to be playing fullback for us. And I believe we should use the fullback more. You look at the NFL, you're seeing the fullback kind of return in vogue. The 49ers, the Chiefs, the Miami Dolphins, the Baltimore Ravens, the kind of offenses that people want to be like, those teams use fullbacks. It's not like an old school, hey, you're an old school caveman coach for using a fullback. Newer teams use fullback. So Pedro, it's a great question. To me, like Pete said, Elijah Lofton, you saw him play fullback last year. I think ultimately when Elijah Lofton gets to the NFL, he's going to be a fullback / running back / H-back, like just a movable piece that lines up at fullback when necessary. He's a weight room beast. He's one of the strongest guys we got in the weight room. He's physical. You saw him play fullback last year and had some very, very powerful lead blocks. He's not afraid of collisions. So he's perfect there. Plus, with him at fullback, you can hand him the ball. He scored a touchdown at fullback last year running it. You can line him up, and he's going to be better than any linebacker by far when it comes to a pass situation. He can stay back and block, protect Carson Beck. He can do a lot of different things. So I think him, but then everything I said about him, I think Mark Fletcher can do, aside from the receiving part, which Lofton is unique in terms of just going out, running routes and doing all that. I think Fletcher can do a lot of those same things. He's still going to be a tailback. I'm not saying he's going to be the fullback, but kind of how Najee Davenport was, maybe with more tailback, because Najee was mostly a fullback because we had so many tailbacks. I think Fletcher would play more running back than Najee did at UM. Najee ended up playing tailback in the pros and doing well, having 100-yard games. But I could see Fletcher kind of that style where he's a running back, he's a tailback. You're gonna hand him the ball and make him part of your running game, running. But if you need him to lead block, he's got such size and power that he can collide. AJ saying, don't start that. He's a running back, see the hole and hit it. Fullback, people think I'm saying that as like a criticism. I'm saying this is another thing he can do. We know he can be the tailback. But to be able to play the fullback as well, or split back, which you saw a little bit last year, and then be the lead blocker and crush people, that just adds to his overall value. Because now he's a more complete football player. Now you're causing much more problems for the defense, because if Fletcher's on the field, is he running it? Is he the lead blocker for a Lyle? if you have him and Lofton, they can both lead block for each other. They're that powerful. Plus in the backfield, he does all those things from a blocking standpoint, protecting the passer. So I would put Fletcher and Lofton in that category. And that's not to say, oh, you're downgrading them by putting them fullback. I think those two guys, the ability they have at fullback, and now you have Lyle who can run. You have Marty Brown who can run. Both Fletcher and Lofton can play the tailback role as well. Now you get your best players on the field, and you open up so many options because not everybody has the power to lead block and collide with these linebackers. Not everybody has the willingness to do that. Fletcher and Lofton have that ability, plus all the other stuff they do.
Here's a quick question from Pedro.
Yeah, he said, why are people so down on Fletcher and higher on his backup when it was games who would get more carries than Martinez last year? I am the biggest Mark Fletcher fan on the planet, so you're not going to hear that from me. I think Fletcher's a complete stud. I think he's one of the best football players on the team. I think he's one of the best football players in the ACC. And I think with running, people, he doesn't have the most dramatic running style where he's super patient, waiting for the big play and juking guys out. He's hitting it, and he's hitting it effectively, and he has speed, and he's got incredible size. When you see him in person, the guy's huge. I just think where he's at his best.
I think he has relative speed. I don't know. I think that's why maybe people are a bit down on him because he hasn't shown the ability to break a 50, 60 yarder to this point. I think that's why perception wise, I love him because, like you said, he hits the hole. He takes 2 steps and he gets 5 yards because he's a long strider. So I think visually it's not as it doesn't wow you the same way as other backs maybe. But it's effective.
Hear you. I think his speed is better than people think. I think maybe it's his cuts that would be weaker. But he has had some.
I think this is the issue with him, D, and this is what I think is maybe more the concern with him is that he's had the fumbling more. That's probably more the concern than anything else, as A-Rob points out.
For sure. And he fumbled in the spring game. So he's got to work on that. Look, the competition's there, man. So, and that's another reason why I think you set him up at fullback, because if you fumble, you don't want, I would never want Mark Fletcher not on the field. He's just too physical. He's too mentally good and strong that if he's fumbling, I'm like, all right, Mark, you're fumbling. Now you're blocking for Jordan Lyle or Marty Brown or Lofton. Right. So I think it's important to train him there and Lofton, not because they're bad, but because they're 2 of your best football players. I would say in terms of, if you were asking me who are the best pure football players on the team. So now I'm talking about just, you could put them in any position and they're going to be good. I would say maybe the 2 best pure football players on the team. I'm not saying the most impactful at their position or whatever, but the most pure football players on the team, Pete. Lofton and Fletcher, in terms of everything you ask them to do, they're going to be able to do that. When you talk about, you put them at linebacker, they'd be our best linebackers. I think either one of those guys would be first round type linebackers. I truly believe that. I said it's about Fletcher since high school. I think they can block. I think they can certainly run the ball. They can both catch. Lofton probably more on the catching side than Fletcher, but just great guys, great attitude, weight room beast, powerful, talented dudes. We need more of those kind of guys to win championships. So, big fan of both. Sorry to cut you off, Peaks. I know you had something you were talking, but I just, the Fletcher comments, I want to make sure we address those in the chat before moving on to anyone else you're hearing some buzz about before.
Well, I forgot what I was going to say before, but I did want to get to this comment from Gio Kane that I think we've talked about this sort of point before. He says, Pete, why were the receivers not used last year? Luke mentioned it and was mad at it, but he was kind of right. We should have been using them for more experience. I'm not saying I wouldn't have liked to see it. I would also kind of pose the question back to you in 2 ways. One, who would you have liked to see more of? Because we've talked about JoJo wasn't ready from a physical standpoint. He was hurt last year. He was banged up. So if he was healthy and he was physically ready to do it every week, of course, I would have loved to see him get more time out there. Ray, he had opportunities and didn't seize them. So who did we want to see more of last year, and where would it have happened? Because there weren't many games where Miami was blowing teams out after the first few games of the year. It was a lot of tight games. There were some comeback games, and there were just games where you weren't going to trust a young receiver out there as much as you were one of these older guys. Yes, did a Jacoby George make boneheaded plays? Of course he did. Did a Sam Brown let you down at times last year? Yes, but I don't know who else they were going to trust in those spots, D. I don't know if they had the depth for it.
I agree. And I would say, and I don't say this as a criticism, but we had Cam Ward. And I don't think, Cam Ward was
He was
trying
tough
to.
on some of these young guys, man. I don't know that it was an easy adjustment. And I say tough, not like he did anything wrong, but for a young receiver to pick things up, like, I don't know if Cam had patience for that last year.
No. And Tom Brady is tough on young receivers. I mean, not like in a way that he's destructive to the team. Cam Ward to me is the ultimate team guy and good guy. And like I've said before, his intangibles, I've never seen anybody with an A in every intangible at quarterback for Miami, on top of what he does on the field, until Cam Ward. But he's an alpha. He's a star of the team. They're the number one offense in the country. It's very similar to Tom Brady when Tom Brady's rolling. If you throw a rookie out there with Tom Brady, well, it could be tough. He's going to tell him, hey, this is what we expect. And if he's not doing it, get him off the field. I'll come back to him next year. Right. So I think that's a little bit of what you saw, which is when you have a quarterback and an offense that is so ready to rock and roll and is so top of the game, it's hard to just jump in there and go through growing pains because we scored every single drive. I mean, every single drive we scored a touchdown. So, one drop,
every single drive, but
it felt like it. I mean, dude, people don't understand. At least some people do. But I honestly did not understand until I really just dove into the stats how much better this offense was than every other team in the country. We scored 43 points a game against Division I opponents. 43 points a game. Number two was 38. So we were 5 points better. It's almost a touchdown better than the second place team. We were a full touchdown better than Notre Dame, which was number 5 offense. And we were a full touchdown better than the number 5 offense, which played in the championship game. So, I mean, it is incredible what we did on offense last year. And that's a hard situation to walk into as a freshman. Now, we'll say Malachi Toney, someone like that, that's the kind of guy that can get in there earlier because I just think mentally he is somebody that is absolutely elite. Preparation, instincts, IQ, you name it. So I think no matter how this offense is doing this year, even though he's a young player, I think he's the kind of young player that's uniquely suited to play early. JoJo, more of a traditional young player. He's going to flash. He had athleticism. You need to get stronger. Now is go time for JoJo Trader. And I think he's going to be able to do it if he stays healthy.
Go ahead, D.
No, well, I mean, do you have anybody else you want to talk about here on the team that you're hearing stuff about?
No, not really. Let me see. Let me pull up my notes. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, you know who I heard Ryan Rodriguez is looking really good right now, too. I know he got hurt last year. He's someone who's dealt with injuries, but I kind of look at him similarly to Markel Bell last year, where we're kind of saying, where they're saying he's going to play, and then we're looking at it like, okay, where is he going to play? Because you have a really good 5 that you think are going to be one of the best groups in the country, and then the season happens, and maybe there's an injury or something happens where we find Ryan Rodriguez playing a big role, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, he's one of our best 5 or 6 offensive linemen. He's playing an important role. I think you could see something like that happen with him this year, and then potentially being your starting center next year.
100%. I agree. He's the first man off the bench. I think if there's an injury in the interior. One last guy I want to talk about, Keontae Scott, the nickel cornerback from Auburn. He was going to transfer to Houston to follow Zach Etheridge, who had left Auburn the year before to go to Houston. Ends up coming back to Miami when Etheridge comes to Miami. For those who don't remember, this was later in the portal process. Keontae Scott was one of the best defensive players really in the SEC playing the nickel role for Auburn. He was projected as a top 100 type pick. I mean, you name it, he was getting that kind of buzz when he played nickel at Auburn under Coach Etheridge, who's now Miami's cornerbacks coach. He also was the best punt returner in the SEC. 10.9 speed, let's say 4.4 speed. If you're trying to just project it to the 40, plenty of size. NFL guy. Has a chance to go pro, comes back to Auburn, gets a lot of NIL money, playing outside corner, struggles big time. Loses his confidence, getting beat a lot. Etheridge had already left to go to Houston to be the defensive coordinator or the defensive backs coach with a raise. Now Etheridge is back in Miami or at Miami. Scott's at Miami. Scott is back to playing his traditional role in the nickel. He looks outstanding, very comfortable, very motivated. The intangible stuff everybody feels great about because, again, it was never a problem with his character. It was he lost confidence. Now he's back with his old coach. He's back at his position where he excelled. Fresh start. None of the fans saw him get beat last year, so there's none of that kind of baggage that you carry sometimes when you have some struggles. So he is somebody that I could see emerging as like an NFL type player. We don't talk about in the secondary, but if he's an NFL type player at nickel, that's going to help your whole group. So keep an eye on Keontae Scott at the nickel.
Yep, excited about the dynamic ability I think he could bring to that spot.
So that's it, man. Stay tuned, like and subscribe to the show. We'll keep.
This isn't it. What are you talking about? This is not it.
No, I'm just closing the segment. I'm closing the segment.
I thought you meant. I listen. I just didn't want you to forget your masterpiece that you worked on.
I know you're locked in with the weight vest, and you. I've never seen you so dialed in. You are rocking and rolling, man. The blood is pumping to the brain. You got the endorphins rolling. That weighted vest, man. I gotta get myself a weighted vest, man. We'll be looking like we're doing the show from third period out here, back in Belen Jesuit, or I guess Columbus in your case. Which I was at
third grade. I don't know. That was I don't think. Yeah, that's third grade. I don't think Belen starts in third grade, man. Maybe.
So, but I wanted to say, like and subscribe to the show. We got over 1,200 on. Like and subscribe, and I know it's been a tough time for recruiting, but I can promise you that none of that has to do at all with finances. These are situations where Miami is actually trying. I can tell you with the case of like Blake Stewart, for example, Miami was trying to overspend. So we're continuing to rock and roll from a collective standpoint. That's given us an advantage. That's why we have the number 10 class in the country. That's why we have the number 3 portal class in the country. And look, if you want recruiting to keep trending up, which it has under Mario, and we need to get it to the next level, the gameplay is going to be there. We're going to be doing our thing on the field, making that last push to flip guys. Canes Connection hasn't gone anywhere, man. All these new changes hasn't gone anywhere. CanesConnection.com/CIS. CanesConnection.com/CIS. Join today, get 20% off your first month. Exclusive Zoom. Now the camp's starting. You're going to get a lot of practice insight. You want to hear about practice? CanesConnection.com/CIS is going to be your choice because it's a little more private. You don't have to worry about other teams coming in and publishing it to the world. So if you want to hear about what's going on in practice, CanesConnection.com/CIS.
What a difference a couple months make. Brandon says, give the money to JD. He'll get the recruits with it.
Yeah, seriously, man. Shout out to JD. So let's talk about baseball for a second here. Because I wanted to get to my guy, Griffin Hugas. Talk about the Canes Connection. This was a Canes Connection product. Somebody who was a shortstop / pitcher at Cincinnati. Miami saw the ability beyond what he showed as a pitcher. They try to project based on his athleticism, the arm, the movement of the fastball. They bring him in to the University of Miami as a pitcher. Again, Canes Connection, big part of that acquisition. And then last night, MLB Draft, which I was streaming live with my guy Adrian Lorenzo, former MLB exec for El Big League show. We were streaming that one live. But third round, 91st pick of the draft, Griffin Hugas selected by the Seattle Mariners. And I love this because if you look at the Seattle Mariners, this is an organization that is known for taking pitchers that maybe are not the highest ranked guys in the world and developing them into some of the best players in the league. Brian Wu, probably the biggest example of that. I believe he's a 6th, 7th round pick out of Cal Poly, ends up being an ace pitcher right now, another right-hander who he really struggled in college. He was nowhere near a Griffin Hugas as far as a production standpoint, but he had the movement profile in his fastball and some other things that Seattle liked. They picked up Brian Wu, developed him, now one of the best players in the league. Griffin Hugas, you pick him this high, which is higher than they picked Brian Wu. That means they just really believe in, I think, the movement profile of his pitches. His fastball's got that rise to it. I think he's got more velocity that he showed at UM, where he was an ace caliber pitcher. He was throwing like 93. I think there's going to be guys going 96, 97 when he's in the system for Seattle. Off speed, he can spin it in terms of his breaking ball. I think this is a guy that could not have gone to a better spot than the Seattle Mariners. I'm not saying he's going to be Brian Wu and he's going to be one of the stars of baseball, but it's possible given where he went and some of the juice that he has in his arm, which obviously Seattle identified. And incredible player for the Canes. Friday starter, stud, great kid. Interviewed him for Storm Sessions. Was awesome. And a great find by JD Arteaga on the staff. And also does a great job of development. And shout out to Canes Connection, because the Canes Connection helped get this one done. So you want to talk about Canes Connection not only impacting football, but baseball. Look no further than transfer portal edition Griffin Hughes, Friday night starter, 3rd round pick. We were replacing Gage Zeal, who was 4th round pick to the Yankees. You replace him with a 3rd round pick in Griffin Hughes. So thank you, Canes Connection. Thank you to the Hughes family. His brother Jackson is now going to be our backup catcher, or who knows? Maybe he'll be our starting catcher. So we'll play DH. Who knows how it all works out? But Hughes is going to be playing. Jackson Hughes, his brother from Presbyterian, is going to be a catcher for us, along with Alex Sosa, one of the top players in the portal. So things looking really good for Canes baseball. Got to survive the second day of the draft. A lot of Canes signees, Canes players potentially getting drafted here. Would love to see a Brian Walters go high, someone that you know is out the door. Love to see him go high and get a big opportunity. And then selfishly, you hope you get some of these guys back, Ogden and some others. So we'll see how that one goes.
Forget Brian Wu, man. What about King Felix?
There it is, taking a throwback, man. Throwback. So I'm going to get into this old article here, Pete, as you pull it up. I'm excited to talk about this one. But first, I got to talk about my people at Islas Canarias Express. Went there this past week, and we'll get to that article. Appreciate the kind of words, Alexander. But let's talk Islas, Pete. I can't let Islas off the hook here on a Monday morning. Everybody's hungry. Islas Canarias, the #1 Cuban restaurant in Miami, in the planet. There's no, you go to Cuba, you're not going to get food this good. You go to the Canary Islands, you're not going to get food this good. 40 plus years. The place in the Dayland Mall Dining Pavilion, Pete, have you been recently?
Yes, I have.
I mean, I went to Paris a few years ago, and I got to say, if you're asking me to stack them, Dayland Mall Dining Pavilion, from a style standpoint, I mean, just from a food standpoint, the just beautiful people walking around, Dayland Mall Dining Pavilion, you could keep Paris. I'm taking the Dining Pavilion, Dayland Mall, South Miami. Unbelievable. I can't believe how far it's come, and leading the bus right there is Islas Canarias. It was packed when I was there, as always, but the line moves fast, great service, and awesome food, man. They have a million options. You name it, 7 different types of croquetas, the best Cuban restaurant on the planet. Arab saying, going to give you diabetes. I had a nice, healthy jackfruit cubarito, and it was outstanding. I felt great. You could go any direction you want. This is not greasy, crappy food. This is authentic, legit Cuban food from some of the most seasoned chefs in the city, man. So shout out to Islas Canarias. You knew Johnny Lagoon was there on Saturday. Johnny Lagoon stays out there at Islas. Am I wrong about the Dining Pavilion, Johnny Lagoon? I mean, the whole environment was outstanding. I couldn't believe it. Brandon asking, am I going live with Adrian today? I'm not, but we'll be watching very closely, hoping you guys don't go off the board that are supposed to, and hoping the ones that are supposed to do, like a Brian Walters. So, we'll see. I mean, obviously, even if they do get picked, you want those guys to have the most success possible, but would love some of these guys to come back to the Canes and go even higher. But yeah, so that was Brandon. You were awesome in the chat yesterday. Blue, Canes Cat, everybody that joined us, 954 from the chat. Like I said, we're the L Big League Show. Check on YouTube to write L Big League, EL Big League Show, which I do with Adrian Lorenzo, former MLB exec, talking baseball. We had another scout on, Manny Padron, on. So it was awesome just talking to 2 scouts, watching live streaming the draft, going over the picks, really learning a lot about baseball. So if you're a baseball fan, whether it's MLB, college, international, whatever, like and subscribe to L Big League Show, man. It is it's a lot of fun to do, and it's really fun to learn about too. And we got a lot of Canes fans from the show that join us on the chat there. So appreciate you guys. But we're not going live today. Got to recover a little bit.
So let's get into your article here, D. The article written to make people forget. But I have more faith in our listeners that they can't be fooled.
Alexander Villette, great article this morning. Do you love looking back and seeing the old recruiting stories? Didn't know stuff about KW2, Gore, Parrish, and Spears. So was not fooling anybody. This was a pre-scheduled article for the latter period of July for obvious reasons. This is kind of a quiet time. So the project that I've been doing here, and this is all on CanesInsight.com, which those of you who aren't on CanesInsight.com and listen to the show, got over 1,300 on, like and subscribe, but check out CanesInsight.com. I mean, 7.5, and let's just start saying that, 0.1 million post and counting. This site is the biggest Canes community on the planet. You want to talk about anything? Obviously, we have a great chat here. We got the show, but this is the place to talk Canes all day, anytime. You could post at any hour of the day, and someone's going to respond, whether from Europe or just a night owl. Who knows? But this thing is always popping. CanesInsight.com. So one of the things I wanted to do, especially during this quieter time, is go back and understand. We know that we had a decline over the last 25 years. How did that look recruiting? Because we follow recruiting so hard. And then boom, right when the class signs us on to the next class. I don't think we often go back and kind of reflect what worked, what didn't, what were the numbers, what were the trends, who recruited better, Coker, Shannon, Golden, where did they struggle, what was the issues there? So this has been an extremely valuable learning experience. And when we get through all the classes going up through the class of 21, which is the Jake Garcia, Leonard Taylor, the last Manny class, we'll kind of go over some lessons learned because there were some very interesting trends. But starting with this one, Pete, which was the class of 2001, I thought was extremely interesting. This was the last really good class. So if you're talking about holding a standard up to compare the subsequent classes to, you start here because this was really our last championship caliber class. You look at the numbers, Pete, as you scroll down a little bit in this article. I use these numbers for every single class so we can compare apples to apples. So these are the numbers I use, starting with 2001. 4-year winning percentage. So starting in their freshman year and then 4 years up, what was the winning percentage of the team? 88%. Obviously, they won a championship their first year. This was a prime class. Total enrollees 20, NFL players 13. So 13 out of 20 guys in this class playing the NFL, over 1,000 NFL games. So they weren't just getting there for a cup of coffee. They were playing a lot. 4 first-round picks, 5 day 2 picks, second, third round. At that time, it wasn't day 2, but that's how we're stacking it to compare across eras. 11 Pro Bowlers. I ranked it in terms of the, and Pete, just scroll down. I'm going to go through it as I go.
11 Pro Bowlers or Pro Bowls?
Pro Bowls total. I think Pro Bowlers, you had Gore, you had Sean Taylor, Kellen Winslow.
Roll probably.
Yeah, at least 3 and 4. Yeah, you had 4 Pro Bowlers. So let's start here. These are the 5 stars at the time. So first 5-star, Leon Williams, big, strong, blue chipper from Brooklyn, New York, Canarsie High School. He was a star of the class. You went up to New York to get him. This is an area I think we could keep recruiting well because it's a city. But Leon Williams, you get him, 4th round pick, 61 NFL games, ended up being a pretty good pro. Didn't put it all together at Miami with his size and his speed, but because some people thought, is he a D-end? Is he a linebacker? He was a really big linebacker, but ultimately was able to 61 NFL games. I mean, that's serious. That's serious. I mean, people look and say, oh, 61 NFL games. It's so hard, Pete, to stay in the league, to have that many games that you're on the field. You're a real player. You're a real NFL player at that point. And he was that, and I think he was really, really talented. That was the 4-star of the crew. The 5-star of the crew, the only one. As you go to the 4 stars, Antro Roll, 155 NFL games, 3-time Pro Bowler. We know what's up there. Local player. You know Antro Roll pretty good. You followed his career. Watching his high school highlights. In fact, Pete, see if you can pull up his high school highlights if you don't mind. Just go to YouTube, Antro Roll high school highlights. Make sure you put the music off because I think I put some like Young Jeezy song or something when I put these highlights up 10 years ago because that was on Canes Insight that we put these up. But Antro Roll is an interesting one. Talk about the southern part of Florida, of Miami, South Dade, Homestead. Sean Taylor's from there as well. Antro Roll, one of the legends from that area. Big corner. Didn't have huge speed at the time, but you're just a super athlete. The question with him was really corner or safety, but didn't matter. He was still a high 4-star type player.
You used duffel bag boys.
Oh, I did? Nice choice.
We had this discussion recently.
Oh, yeah, the player circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So here we go. Make sure you got the sound off. Yeah. But this was 10 years ago, I put up a lot of these old videos on YouTube on our old channel. It's not even on the same channel anymore, but I just put some whatever song I was listening to at the time, just like on my headphones. I would just put it on the highlights. Here, look at Antro Roll. This is what we need to get back to. So everyone who's met Antro Roll is a big dude, and then he's doing stuff like this. Not like, again, a 4.4 speedster necessarily at the time. He did run faster when he left Miami, as Nick West points out. He ran a sub 4.4 at the combine, and you can see him here running this guy down. But man, what jumped out to me about Roll, on top of the size and the physicality, this dude was a true all-around athlete.
Yeah, I mean, you see him playing both sides of the ball. You've mentioned that recently, how Miami just hasn't had enough defensive backs come in who play offense as well. Would have been nice for Blake Stewart.
Yeah, seriously. That's one thing you see when you go and look at these old highlights from Butch era. He was bringing in defensive backs that played both ways. Obviously, Sean
do you think that was also the era? Because you don't see as many guys playing both sides of the ball these days.
Great question. These guys are so good, you have to play them on both sides of the ball. You'd be fired if you didn't. If you're trying to win a state championship and you don't have Sean Taylor on offense, I mean, what are you doing? So I think that's part of it too, is that these guys were so good that, like, if you did not play them on offense, you were not giving your team a chance to win. Philip Buchanan, who was in a prior class, those guys were big-time offensive players. So you just had – it's like Bryce Fitzgerald this year, right? You just had to play him on offense if you're trying to give your team the best chance to win. And I think Antro Roll, you saw this in college. One thing about in the pros, he did this too. One thing about Antro Roll that blew my mind, Antro Roll played offense in the NFL. They threw him screens on the Cardinals. I don't know what his total stats were. Maybe it was like 3 catches or something like that. But Antro Roll played a little offense in the NFL just to show you how good of an athlete he was, man. So if you're going both ways in the National Football League, you're a pretty special dude. And Antro Roll certainly was that. There you go, tricking the cameraman. But yeah, so Pete, going down the list here, shout out to Antro Roll, one of the greats. So you had Antro Roll, highly rated guy. Your top 3 recruits in terms of ranking, all these guys end up going to the NFL. So Leon Williams, NFL, Antro Roll, NFL star. Then Orion Harris, who was a high 4-star player out of Newark, Delaware. You're going into Delaware and landing an Orion Harris. That's pretty impressive. He ended up going in the 4th round to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Didn't last long in the NFL, 20 games, but he was a solid player for the Canes. Maybe not as talented or as impactful as what you thought you might get just based on his ranking. But I mean, you on the 4th round, you play 20 and you play in the NFL, you contribute to some good defenses. That's pretty impressive. Robert Bergman from Bakersfield, California, Merle Haggard country in California. He was probably the biggest disappointment in this class. There weren't many, but he was someone you hoped would be a core offensive lineman, baseball player, punter, really good athlete. Didn't really have the size or power that you wanted. So that was the offense. The offensive line decline started a little bit. Kellen Winslow, we'll get to the story with him in a second. Actually, we'll start now. So bigger picture with this class, just going down story time. You had Butch Davis really recruited this whole class. That's why it's the best class, because this was the best class of the Coker era going forward. But really, this was a Butch Davis class. So he recruited all these guys. However, to give credit to Larry Coker, his best recruiting jobs were in this class, because after signing day or towards the end, after Butch Davis left, which was in January, signing day was in February at this time, he landed 3 NFL players and really iconic Miami players, starting with this guy here, Kellen Winslow, who signed after signing day. Kellen Winslow, too, wanted to go to the University of Washington, which was really good at the time. Rick Neuheisel was the coach of Washington. Rick Neuheisel was a player back in the NFL. Kellen Winslow's dad, the Hall of Famer Kellen Winslow, hated Rick Neuheisel because when there was a player strike, Rick Neuheisel crossed the picket line and played. So just from like a labor standpoint, there was a lot of beef between Kellen Winslow and Rick Neuheisel. So Rick Neuheisel being the coach of Washington, Kellen Winslow said, I don't want my son to go there, period. He wanted his son to go to Michigan State. Their coach at the time was Bobby Williams, who was, I believe, the only black head coach in college at that time. So Winslow wanted to help him out. They go to do a show for Fox Sports, which Winslow was a host on. He was going to announce his commitment. He was supposed to announce for he wanted him to announce for Michigan State. Winslow was about to announce for Washington, and his dad basically kind of like stopped it on live TV. It was very awkward if you saw it live. I remember seeing this vividly. It was on Fox Sports or something like that. So really weird moment. Ended up that they went back to the drawing board. Miami was kind of hanging around the recruitment. Curtis Johnson, who ended up being head coach at Temple, I don't know where he is now, was
Tulane.
Tulane, yeah. Was a coach for New Orleans Saints for a while, wide receivers coach. I don't know if he's retired now or what he's doing, but he was really recruiting Winslow hard as a receiver at the time. Dad wants Michigan State, son wants Washington. Ultimately, they're like, you know what? Let's send you to Miami. That's a compromise choice, and that's what happened. The rest is history. First-round pick, 105 NFL games, made a Pro Bowl. If not for his off-the-field demons and injuries, probably talking about a Hall of Fame type player. He was as good as any tight end we ever had. Going down the line here, Roger McIntosh from Gaffney, South Carolina, second-rounder, 124 NFL games. That was a major hit at linebacker. Thomas Carroll from Lakewood, New Jersey, 4-star player. Was a little smaller maybe than he was billed. Didn't live up to the huge hype that he had, but was a good player for us in college. Andrew Williams, junior college player from Tampa Jefferson. Shout out to Cable Patel, Tampa Jefferson grad, my boy. Third-round pick, 9 NFL games, but was really impactful. Of all these guys, he was probably the one that made the biggest impact on the 2001 team, which was that season because he was a JUCO guy. Scrolling down, Randy Boxell from Palm Beach. He was a teammate of Vince Wilfork. We signed Vince Wilfork the year before, tried to hit lightning twice with Boxell. Didn't quite work out. He couldn't really play. But Rashad Butler, who you got from Palm Beach Dwyer, ended up being a really good player, starter for you, third-round pick, 51 NFL games, started games for the Houston Texans. Then finally, and I wanted to get to these guys, as you get to the bottom, this guy was a lower 4-stars you see from these rankings, but Frank Gore, who you would think Frank Gore was the best recruit, one of the best recruits in this class, not only because of what he became, but because he ran for 3,000 yards as a senior. I mean, this guy was one of the best players in South Florida history on the field, but ended up lower ranked player for whatever reason. There were some qualification issues. People weren't sure if he was going to be able to get into school because of his academics. And, he had a learning disability that ended up working out. But Frank Gore, third-round pick, what can you say? 241 NFL games, Pro Bowler, 5 times Hall of Famer. He was going to go to Ole Miss because Miami, Butch Davis, for as great as he was and as much as he did to put this class together, Butch Davis did not prioritize Frank Gore and did not prioritize Roscoe Parrish. They were buddies. They were both probably the 2 best players in Dade County, along with Sean Taylor and Antrell Roll. So those 2 were on their way to Ole Miss because Butch didn't really prioritize Gore and Parrish. When Coker came in, to his credit, the class was already pretty much done, but Gore came in and said, Coker came in and said, I'm an offensive coordinator. I'm an offensive guy. I'm not letting Frank Gore and Roscoe Parrish lead the city. Put the pressure on both those guys, ended up bringing them in, iconic Miami players. So as much as we want to give credit for this first class to Butch, and he deserves most of it, I will give the credit to Coker. I mean, he killed us down the line, as you'll see as we go down the series. But I will give credit to Larry Coker because Larry Coker added to this class Frank Gore, Roscoe Parrish, and Kellen Winslow. Without those guys, I mean, this class is nowhere near what it became. So shout out to Coker on that move.
Let's get to the 3 stars.
Yeah, they hit a lot of 3 stars in this class. Butch Davis, the best evaluator in our lifetimes, and you could see in this class here, he hit on a lot of 3 stars. So Quatrine Hill, Nick West saying he got some run with the Patriots. He was on the team. I don't know if he played in games. The only guys I include as NFL players were guys that either played in games or were drafted, or both. So I didn't see gameplay for him unless they got it wrong. If I'm wrong on that, correct me and I'll update this. But Quatrine Hill, he's not an NFL guy, but the guy was a very valuable player for the Canes, helped us at fullback. I think that was a hit out of Sunrise. His dad played in the NFL. That was a good evaluation, good senior evaluation by the staff. Sean Taylor, I mean, what can you say here, Pete? We're talking about. I
can say that he wouldn't have been a 3-star if there was if the evaluation system is what it is now.
Yeah, Pete, talk about that because, and I'm rambling a lot. I want to make sure you're getting your comments in. Although, how old were you?
Well, listen, I remember this was 2001. I was 7 years old, so I don't. I started following recruiting when I was in like 6th grade, 7th grade, like around when the Northwestern team became you know, became a thing. So really that's 07, 08 class was when I started following it like
So we'll
that.
get there.
But I mean, I just know that a guy like this, there's no way that he would have been looked at as a 3-star.
You're absolutely right.
There's just no way. He obviously Gulliver wasn't playing the biggest competition in the world, but with the camp system, what it is now, I don't know. And listen, I might have some Gulliver people jump on me, but I don't know if Sean Taylor would have been a Gulliver.
Yeah,
if it was modern era too. So
well, Gulliver stunk back then too. Gulliver was actually worse back then.
They won. They were good because of him. So
and also Buck Ortega, which we're gonna get to in a second. So Sean Taylor, best player I've ever seen at UM. When you really break it all down, the best football player ever to come out of South Florida, in my opinion. I think we know. Listen, what can you say about him? The one thing I always say about Sean Taylor is he died at 24. Ed Reed got to the NFL at 24. Just to show you that how young this guy was and how much he'd already done. But in terms of a recruit, he was not a big recruit, like we talked about. 3-star player. Georgia Tech, I think, was the other school involved with him. Hadn't generated a ton of buzz. He was a Killian player, good player at Killian, transferred to Gulliver, but then 44 touchdowns, which set the state record until Derrick Henry broke it like 10 years later. He was completely dominant, carried them to a state championship game. Everybody in Miami knew that Sean Taylor was the best player in the state, probably the best player in the country, but that was not reflected in the recruiting rankings. And I agree. Nowadays, you just see this guy once, and he's 5 stars on the spot. So that was it. Of all these guys, Sean Taylor's the one where you say recruiting's probably changed since his time period, because this would be a 5-star player any other era. Kelly Jennings, before we move off him, probably the best evaluation of this crew, Pete. So Kelly Jennings, first-round player, and played 91 NFL games from Live Oak, Suwannee High School. This is a North Florida school. It was interesting. Their secondary, one of the best secondaries in recent memory, they had 3 big 3 players. They had Kelly Jennings at corner from Miami. They had Jarvis Herring, who went to Florida, to the Gators, and Kyler Hall, the safety that went to FSU. They had a white safety, if you guys remember, back in around this time period. That was Kyler Hall. So you had the big 3 guys, and the Kelly Jennings was actually the one that had the least amount of height of all those guys. But Butch Davis he goes, okay, this guy's 6 foot. He's got smooth feet. He's a 2-way player, a wide receiver, and a corner. He finished second in the 100 meters to Yamon Figures, who ended up going to Kansas State, being a really good player. Great student as well. So he just kind of check the 2-way ability, which we talked about earlier with Antro Roll, the track speed, multi-sport, right, with the track, and then just the movement skills at corner. We ended up focusing on Kelly Jennings and not the 2 higher rated guys who went to Florida and Florida State. Kelly Jennings, first-round pick, ended up being the best of the bunch. Buck Ortega, quarterback out of Gulliver. A lot of people don't realize he played 12 NFL games. His father also played in the NFL. He was a quarterback. He was really the only quarterback in this class, although a lot of people said he was going to be an athlete, and they were right. Ended up being a tight end in the NFL, more a special teams guy. But big, athletic dude, a lot of traits, teammate of Sean Taylor. I remember when he got offered, a lot of people were like, oh, they're just doing it to bring in Sean Taylor, but both guys ended up in the NFL. Ortega, I think the mistake with Ortega was not that you brought him in because he was a good player. Maybe you should have brought him in with another quarterback. But Miguel Robede, Quebec, Canada, Miami got Romberg and Sherko and all these guys out of Canada. So they went to get Miguel Robede. He ended up being a disappointment here in Miami, but went to Canada, ended up being the first pick of the CFL draft. Brandon Sebald was a pretty productive 2-way player out of Ulster, New York. Didn't really end up doing anything really at Miami. Marcus Maxey, good evaluation out of Houston type area, Navasota, Texas. 5th-round picks, played 2 NFL games. He was a good pickup, a good evaluation by Butch out of Texas. And then we talked about Roscoe. So overall, and then Tony Tella from Houston started some games. That was the lowest rated guy. So overall, man, this is the gold standard, Pete. This is exactly what you want to win. If you want to win a championship, this is the kind of class that you need. The last Butch Davis class. It counts as Coker's class because it was a transition class, but really Butch got it there, and then Coker put it over the line with 3 great ads in Kellen Winslow, Roscoe Parrish, and of course Hall of Famer Frank Gore. So it was all downhill from here. Unfortunately, I go through the list and I say In terms of misses, actually, Pete, I want to get to the misses too, because when you roll down, those are all the good things that happen. In terms of misses, there are 3 that I think really kind of set Miami up negatively down the road. Number 1, Chris Gamble was a 2-way player at a Dillard High School, Fort Lauderdale, who was a great receiver, great DB. He was a 2-star player, but it was like Sean Taylor. People down here knew he was a really, really good player. So he ended up, Miami didn't recruit him, even though he was really, really good, or at least didn't recruit him hard enough. Ends up going to Ohio State. And if you remember the Terry Porter flag, the receiver on that play was Chris Gamble. Really the last 2-way player until Travis Hunter, I think, as far as like doing it at that high a level, was Chris Gamble. Ends up being a first-round pick to the Panthers, plays 9 years in the pros. So that was a big miss because not only do you lose a great local player, a first-round pick, but man, he killed us on the worst play in Miami history. He was the guy that they were going to. So that was a loss that I think hurt us down the road with Chris Gamble. Another one that was a little this is more for those of you who were following recruiting at the time. Miami really had a good shot at Marcus Spears and Michael Clayton out of Baton Rouge. This is before LSU really got cooking, or like right as they were getting cooking. So Miami had a great shot at Marcus Spears as being the top team in the country. Michael Clayton, they had those guys, but then LSU ended up keeping him home. That ended up being LSU's kind of foundational class. Marcus Spears, Michael Clayton, Ben Wilkerson, Marquise Hill, the late Marquise Hill. Joseph Adai was in that class as well. Andrew Whitworth, one of the best players in the NFL for a while. So that class under head coach Nick Saban ended up propelling LSU to be what they are. So those 2 losses, you didn't notice at the time, but you were really setting up Saban down the road and you were setting up LSU down the road. And those 2 entities would hurt Miami quite a bit over the years.
Yeah, Johnny Lagoon saying Marcus Spears, really, I feel like those guys can't leave. Well, not much has changed.
But that was how it is. That's how it is now.
Yeah.
LSU was not like that in 2001. LSU had not, like, again, you guys are younger, you don't remember. LSU sucked. LSU was like Georgia. Georgia and LSU sucked in the 90s and the 80s, really. Like LSU and Georgia were not good programs like they are now. That changed around the early 2000s with Rick at Georgia and then Saban at LSU.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Remember, we got Ed Reed and Reggie Wayne from Louisiana. We got Ed Reed and Reggie Wayne. Those guys didn't go to LSU because that was before.
So you're saying it's been like us the last 20 years?
I've been saying that's our comeback for a while. But man, the years are starting to add up. Brandon's saying, I was 1 year old. This is a good listen. Appreciate you, man. Pikes Peak saying that's fact. They played midweek games against Ole Miss. Yeah, that's a part of the reason why I'm doing this exercise, man. I'm old enough and I followed recruiting at a young enough age that I saw this stuff kind of in real time. But it's interesting when you go back and put yourself in that mind frame of, we know how it is now, looking back, but like, what was it like at the time? And then what do we learn? And ultimately, Pete, I do a little series at the end of these. By the way, I'm going to do these every day. Maybe we're going to go a little long doing it, Pete. But I want to make sure we have some January or some July content. So we're going to go all these through 2021. I'll have an article up every day on CanesInSight.com. But I always do best player, best evaluation, biggest disappointment, lesson learned. Best player, Sean Taylor. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. Maybe Frank Gore, but Pete, would you agree Sean Taylor on that one?
Yeah.
Best evaluation, I put Kelly Jennings because he was a guy that ended up being a first-round pick from a 3-star. Biggest miss, we talked about some of those guys. Or biggest disappointment, Robert Bergman. There weren't that many disappointments in this class. Those are going to be that competition is going to get a lot harder as you go down the list and you get closer to some of these other classes like 2008 and 2014. A lot of disappointments coming up. But with respect to this class, Bergman, I would say was the only one because 4-star didn't play. Everybody else pretty much hit. But the lesson I learned, take a quarterback every year. You took Buck Ortega, but that really wasn't your quarterback. He was an athlete. You got to take a quarterback every year because if you don't, you're going to get stuck, which we did in this era.
We have breaking news, D. Let me pull it up here regarding something that we talked about last week on the show. Local story here. And Rivals just tweeted an update from the man himself. Teddy Bridgewater says he's been suspended by Miami Northwestern. So, and he said, so if I'm suspended from Miami Northwestern, I'm free to go to another school of my choice, but I'm not going anywhere. So,
yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, whatever.
He says that there's no real investigation going on, is what he said. He said they self-reported. So he says if it comes down to it, I will volunteer from the bleachers like I used to in 2018 and 2019 when no one had a problem. This is my last post about this BS. So,
man, well, we talked about this with Streeter from Footballville. Check that out in the YouTube. We talked about this in depth. I mean, it's a shame. This is the best year this is the best era in Northwestern in years, and you're doing something like this. I mean, he's got to be smarter about stuff he puts out, but that's disappointing to see, man. I mean, we're not talking about crimes, like stupid stuff like Uber rides, and this is what we're dealing with. Kind of annoying. And you just hope the kids don't get caught up in it. If he's getting suspended, he can take it. You just don't want kids getting, missing playoff games and stuff like that because of this stuff. So we'll see how it goes, man. Over 1,600 on. Remember to like and subscribe to the show. Check out CanesInsight.com for all those articles. Plus, Miami Hurricane team store, man. Load up for the season. It's July. Now it's time to get right for the season. 20% off your first item. Use promo code INSIGHT20, MiamiHTS.com. You can also go to the store right across the street from the University of Miami. The promo code works both ways. INSIGHT20 for 20% off the first item. You got to get ready for the season. Load up. There's the jersey right there. Class of 2001, Sean Taylor. Wearing the 2001 throwback while we're talking about all that stuff. But yeah, check out MiamiHurricaneTeamStore.com and make sure you're taken care of, man. This is it's football season. Got to get ready to rock. So people are working extra here, an hour 30 minutes now with this extra segment, but we got to make sure we got content stored away. It's July, baby. We got to have the daily content stored away, man. So we'll be going down memory lane a little bit here. Can't wait to get to 2008 so we can get your perspective as a young Browd Pete studying the recruiting game.
Yes, definitely.
So like and subscribe, everybody. Appreciate you joining us. Go Canes.
Go Canes.